Professor Howard Williams takes you on a journey through time and space, exploring death and memory, past and present. Archaeodeath.
Okay, so we're coming to the final section of the day, so I shall introduce myself and then hand over to Professor Keith Ray again. So, the future of the Offa Dyke Journal. Now, this could be a long story or a short story. I've done a video that will be available tonight that will give you sort of the backstory of this journal, but the short of it is, as part of the Collaboratory's activities, as well as having a website, as well as having events and trying to build connections and projects, and some of the results of those synergies are clearly exhibited throughout today and ongoing. The idea was also to create some kind of academic ongoing product, an academic journal that could provide a venue for a number of different outputs. And that's the Offa Dyke Journal, which exists in paperback, but it's really supposed to be an e-journal. And let me explain what that means, is that having spent 5 years and 6 volumes taking on and developing the Royal Archaeological Institute's Archaeological Journal from 2012 to 2017, I gained more experience than I ever thought I'd dream I needed or would want to in the joys of academic journal editing, and realising it's really quite a specialist craft. There are people in this room who know and have more experience than I of this, but equally there are many academics, very effective field workers, museum curators or other specialists or lab-based archaeology in some regard, who may not have that experience of journal editing. It's a very specialist, weird niche in any discipline. And certainly as an editor, I was editing some of the sort of greatest names in archaeology of many different generations overlapping for the Archaeological Journal. I was realising that there's people who have decades of experience in archaeological work who perhaps don't know so much about what happens behind the scenes. And it was even said to me at one meeting early on, Howard, do you actually do this, this and this for the journal? I said, well, yes, that's what all the editors have done for the last 150 years, or whatever it may be. And there was a surprise in the room, because many of the people on the editorial committee of the REI hadn't quite known what the editors do and what the publishers do. So this gave me a lot of experience. And so I realised I could put that to good use in designing and co-editing a journal. And the idea was to work with JAS Publishing, a Spanish-based public archaeologist, Jaime Armanza Sanchez, who has a lot of experience in public archaeology and digital archaeology, to work with him to produce an e-journal. And the key point here is outside of the control and profits of commercial publishers. The Taylor and Francis, CUP, Brill, all these big name publishers who are, and there's an ethical issue there, and there's also a practical issue of the product and what is controlled, who has the copyright, who has the ownership. And we wanted to create something free of the shackles of even societies. So it'd be part of a research network, but it would be free floating. And so we designed the Offa Dyke Journal. And we've had 5 successful volumes that have produced 43 articles, 5 of which are editorials by me or co-authored. A key element was to include classics revisited. So articles that have been published elsewhere, but stuff on Offa Dyke, Watts Dyke and linear earthworks more generally are published in an eclectic range of different venues. And so one of the key outputs of this is drawing together 5 of those classics revisited articles by sort of leading scholars, David Hill, Margaret Worthington Hill, Anne Williams, and others, so that we can have that past work that perhaps hasn't had the credit it's due, because it was published in a print-only journal. And if you weren't a member of a particular county or national society, or you're a member of an academic library, you might not have accessed that. So we've got permission to reproduce 5 articles, but also 34 original peer-reviewed pieces of research. And amongst them, we're looking at, very much in the spirit of what we've seen here today, the publication of avocational researchers' work, the publication of professional field work, and the publication of academic synthesis by different disciplines. And while we deliberately styled the journal to look a little retro, to have a serif font, to have a kind of between the wars Cyril Fox era vibe to it, I suppose, that was a deliberate aesthetic, to honour the tradition of the investigation of Offa's Dyke and so on. We really wanted this to be a venue where the latest research could appear and get an airing. And I don't want to go through all of them, but volumes 1 and 2 both contain pieces on the contemporary landscape, the heritage, the public archaeology of how we talk about these monuments in today's world, as well as studies of the human story of these monuments in the story of past times. And volume 3 took that forward, and then volume 4 was a conference proceedings, a special issue from a Cambridge conference, guest edited by Dr. Ben Guy. So, and then finally, the biggest one yet, volume 5, out last summer, a monster, 264 pages, including, again, papers that are eclectic and varied from Dan Llewellyn Hall and co-authors who are poets, giving reflections on the art of Offa's Dyke and his Walking with Offa project, through to papers by scholars such as Dr. Maughan Cabot, Dr. Pauline Clark, here today, both me, of course, yeah, various other people looking at Dr. Roger White, expert in Roman archaeology, giving a sort of perspective on the past and the present, and scholars working on Denmark, Southeast and Central Europe, and even a paper on the linear earthworks of Ukraine. So in other words, taking that sort of broader European perspective. So my point is, while we call it Offa's Dyke Journal, the point is to create a journal, as we've given it a new subheading, a journal for linear monuments, frontiers and borderlands research, that can serve to sit between and augment in a digital format, the kinds of publications that were going on in other county journals, national journals, but could draw that past research together and create a platform for future research moving forward. And so that's really what the journal has become, and in many ways I think it's been a success, but of course it's a niche topic, and evaluating it in terms of number of reads or views is not really the point. It's more about creating a platform that is going to perpetuate for people who want to actively research, and we've included doctoral researchers, masters researchers, as well as more established scholars in that format. And I just want to give you an update of what's happening now. So having had a bumper volume 5, volume 6 is going to be a little slimmer, for no other reason that this is a problem all journals face, is the timing in which people do research and then try to publish it is utterly unpredictable. And this, because we're not trying, there's no actual obligation to do this every year, I'm not really worried. If I was working for, we're not paid for, but most academic editors are working kind of for a commercial publisher, there's a pressure, we have to fill a journal every year. I will be producing a volume 6, it'll be slim, but that's not really the point. I will want a regular update, and it doesn't have to be big or of any particular size. And because it's an e-journal, it doesn't actually matter in the same way as others. But I'm going to produce an editorial. There'll be one classic to revisited paper by Alex Langlands and Andrew Reynolds on the Wands Dyke, and I've got 2 papers going through peer review, one on prehistoric linears and one on possible early medieval linear earthwork. And maybe I'll be able to get some time to write a piece that maybe I'll hand over to an editorial stand-in, because I can't judge my own work. Dr. Kate Waddington, who's on the editorial board, has agreed to evaluate whether I've written anything worth publishing, and if necessary, to send it to peer review. But that this year's been crazy, so I'm not sure I can do that. But the point is, there will be a volume 6. And we always planned there would be potentially up to 10 volumes, and I'm really heartened to hear that there's a potential, at least, not written in stone, but Charles Inslee has already indicated a potential special issue, which is one option. And the editorial board have proposed, and I'm naming and shaming them here, have proposed some great ideas of potential themed issues moving forward. We don't have to do all of these, some of these can be combined, but Professor Claire Downham has suggested perhaps a special themed issue that expands, looking at physical and ethnic boundaries. Professor Florian Curter has proposed 2 ideas of potential themed issues, drawing on European and global archaeology, looking at barriers as frontier works. Themes that take us way beyond Offa's Dyke, but allow the monuments that provide the focus of the journal to speak to broader debates. As Charles was saying earlier, we have to put the monuments that we're particularly interested in that broader context. The historiography of these linear frontiers is another theme proposed, and Keith has proposed potential themes on river crossings and the power of rivers to divide and connect. I think that's a really fascinating theme, and the whole issue of surveillance we keep talking about again and again. And I've got an idea that I haven't really shared beyond talking to a few of the editorial board about one that looks a dedicated theme on contemporary archaeology and heritage of linear monuments. You know, monuments, linears that divide in our world, and we see frontiers of different kinds being carved up literally as we speak in different parts of the world. And this is an ongoing topic, I wish it wasn't, of timely debate about the heritage of linear monuments in the contemporary world. So there are potential themed issues, and also I want to encourage all of you, many of the talks that you've heard today are almost ready to be published in format in one way or another, even as interim observations. We've got some really exciting ongoing work, and so the idea is that this is a venue that serves not only professionals and academics, but potentially as a way in for avocational voices, new voices to pitch their work. And while we will try and put things rigorously through peer review, it's in an editorial spirit of constructive support to try and get that work that's maybe been languishing in grey literature or languishing as ideas spoken in presentations or in magazines to the next level of being in an academic peer-reviewed context. So that's what the journal's for. It's functioning to support and extend the work of active live projects and networks, and I think that's what a journal should do at its best. Not just serving a publisher or a society that we have to churn one out every year, And so I'm not committing to this time schedule. I don't know, 15. I meant 25. I meant. Sorry, editorial typo there. Yeah. 2025. This is what happens when you have no sleep for 7 days. Through to 2028. I'm not committing that we have to get one out every year. And one of the ideas is we just put it on hold, wait for the next one to happen. But I think it'd be good to keep that momentum going. And it's really important to recognise that this journal wouldn't have happened without a co-editor for 4 issues, 2 co-editors for the 4th issue, and also wouldn't have happened without the support of my university, a rare thing I actually say, nice things about my university, and also the Offa Dyke Association, who bankrolled this. A small amount of money, but a really significant amount of money to support the editorial work and the production. So, and that really makes it a kind of nice thing, a joy to do, and I'm probably proud of this than anything else I've academically published, because yes, it is kind of my baby at the moment, but the other thing is that I've got all the files, I've got all the format, it can easily be handed on to someone else. The style can change, the editors can change, but what I've done, I think, is set up a product that if people want it to, it could run with different editors. If they don't like green, if they don't like the format, you can change the name. But as an online product that can produce ongoing research that looks at the history, archaeology, heritage of frontiers, borderlands and linear monuments as part of them. But whether that happens or not isn't really the game. It doesn't have to go on for 150 years like a society journal just to fulfil a role. It has to be active and meaningful for a group of researchers and enthusiasts, and I think that's the spirit in which we're pursuing it at the moment. So I'm kind of, in my mind, we're committing to another 5, but if we do only 3, that's not the end of the world. It's about as long as it's serving a function and supporting those who have a community of interests in these themes. So that's what I wanted to say today, and to thank you. And many of the authors who actually published on this are here today, so thank you all for supporting me. Many of you supported me in multiple roles, as authors, as stand-in editors, as peer reviewers, and it only works with that community behind it, really. So thank you for that, but also think about it as a potential venue down the line. Mm-hmm. Cheers.
Sadly, we're all going to die. But while you're waiting, why not follow Archaeodeath? Subscribe now on YouTube.